The courtroom was packed, buzzing with whispers and tension. At the center of it all sat John, a weathered man in his 60s, his military medals pinned to a threadbare jacket. He sat hunched over, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. His face was a mixture of defeat and frustration as he stared at the table in front of him. The judge cleared her throat, silencing the murmurs in the room. "Mr. John Miller, you are charged with trespassing and attempted theft at the Magnolia Building. How do you plead?" Before John could respond, the heavy double doors of the courtroom swung open. All heads turned as Donald Trump strode in, flanked by his security detail. His expression was thunderous, his trademark confidence tinged with uncharacteristic anger. "Your Honor," Trump's voice boomed, cutting through the silence like a knife. "I'd like to say a few words on behalf of this man." The judge blinked in surprise, momentarily stunned by the sudden arrival. "Mr. Trump, this is highly irregular. You are not—" Trump interrupted, his voice unwavering. "Irregular or not, I won't stand by while an American hero is treated like this. John Miller is a veteran who served this country with honor. He doesn't deserve to be sitting here, accused of something he didn't do." John turned, his eyes wide with shock. "Mr. Trump, what are you doing here?" Trump placed a reassuring hand on John's shoulder. "I heard about this nonsense, John. You saved this country. Now it's my turn to save you." The prosecutor stood, adjusting his glasses. "Mr. Trump, with all due respect, this case is based on clear evidence. Security footage shows Mr. Miller entering the Magnolia Building after hours." Trump cut him off, his voice rising. "Clear evidence? Or convenient evidence? Did anyone bother to ask why he was there? Did anyone consider that he might have been looking for shelter, not stealing?" John spoke up, his voice hoarse but firm. "I wasn't stealing. I was trying to get out of the cold. That building's been empty for years. I didn't think anyone would care." The prosecutor frowned, flipping through his notes. "Intent is irrelevant. The law is the law." Trump slammed his hand on the table, making everyone in the room jump. "The law is meant to serve justice, not punish the innocent. This man is a victim of circumstance, not a criminal, and if you think I'm going to let you railroad him, you've got another thing coming." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Trump, please. This is a courtroom, not a rally." Trump took a deep breath, his tone softening slightly. "Your Honor, I apologize for the outburst, but I believe in fairness, and what's happening here is far from fair. Let's talk about facts. John has no prior record, no history of violence. He's a veteran who's been let down by the system. Instead of punishing him, we should be helping him." The room fell silent as Trump's words hung in the air. The judge looked at John, her expression softening. "Mr. Miller, is this true? Were you seeking shelter?" John nodded, his voice breaking. "Yes, Mom. I've been on the streets for months. It was freezing that night. I didn't know what else to do." The judge leaned back in her chair, her gaze thoughtful. After a moment, she sighed. "While trespassing is still a crime, I understand the extenuating circumstances. Given your service to this country and the lack of malicious intent, I'm dismissing the charges." The courtroom erupted in murmurs again, but Trump's voice rose above them all. "Thank you, Your Honor. You've done the right thing." John turned to Trump, his eyes brimming with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Trump. I thought my life was over." Trump smiled, his tone warm but firm. "You don't need to thank me, John. You've already given enough to this country. Now it's time for us to give back to you. We'll get you off the streets, find you a job, and get you the help you need. That's a promise." As they left the courtroom together, the crowd parted, watching in awe as the larger-than-life businessman walked beside the humbled veteran. For John, it wasn't just freedom he'd gained. It was hope for a future he'd thought was long lost. As they stepped out of the courthouse, the crisp afternoon air greeted them. A small group of reporters had gathered outside, cameras clicking furiously as Trump and John descended the steps. John hesitated, his shoulders hunching instinctively under the scrutiny. Trump noticed and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "John, don't worry about them. You've got nothing to hide and everything to be proud of." One of the reporters shouted, "Mr. Trump, why are you personally involved in this case? What makes this veteran so special to you?" Trump turned to face the cameras, his hand still firmly on John's shoulder. His voice was steady, commanding attention. "Why? I'll tell you why. This man served our country with courage and honor. He didn't ask for anything in return, but when life got tough, the system failed him. That's unacceptable." John looked down, visibly moved by Trump's words. Trump continued, his tone rising with conviction. "This isn't just about John. This is about every veteran who's been forgotten, left to fend for themselves. It's about showing them the respect and support they've earned." The reporters kept firing questions, but Trump cut them off with a wave of his hand. "Enough talk. Actions speak louder than words. John and I have a lot to do, and it starts now." He turned to John. "First stop, a warm meal. Second stop, we're getting you a place to stay. Then we're making some calls. I know people, John. The kind of people who can help turn this around." John's voice was shaky but filled with gratitude. "Mr. Trump, I don't know how to thank you. I don't even know why you're doing this for me." Trump smiled, his usual bravado tempered by sincerity. "Because I can, John, and because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes that's all the reason you need." They climbed into the waiting SUV, the press still buzzing behind them. Inside, Trump pulled out his phone and started dialing. "John, I'm calling a friend who runs a veteran support organization. You'll have a job lined up before the day is over. Trust me." John shook his head in disbelief. "This feels like a dream. A few hours ago, I thought I'd be locked up. Now I'm sitting here with you, getting a second chance." Trump laughed, clapping him on the back. "It's not a dream, John. It's reality. And it's just the beginning." The SUV pulled into a high-end restaurant downtown. Trump led John inside, the staff snapping to attention as soon as they recognized him. "Table for two," Trump said, glancing back at John with a grin. "We're celebrating." As they sat down, John's hands trembled slightly as he picked up the menu. "I haven't had a proper meal in months," he admitted quietly. Trump leaned in, his expression softening. "Then order whatever you want. Steak, lobster. Hell, order two of everything if you're hungry." John chuckled, his nervousness easing. "You're something else, Mr. Trump." Trump raised a glass of sparkling water. "To second chances, John, and to making sure no veteran ever has to fight a battle like this alone." John clinked his glass against Trump's, his eyes shining with newfound hope. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was living. After their meal, Trump escorted John to a sleek office building a few blocks away. The lobby was bustling, filled with professionals rushing to and from meetings. John looked around, overwhelmed by the energy of the place. Trump patted his back. "This is the Veterans Initiative Center. My friend runs it. They're going to help you get everything you need. Housing, medical care, job training. You name it." John hesitated, his voice trembling. "You've already done so much, Mr. Trump. I don't want to be a burden." Trump shook his head firmly. "A burden? Don't ever say that. You carried the weight of this country on your shoulders. This is the least we can do for you." Inside the office, a woman in a sharp suit greeted them. She extended her hand to John with a warm smile. "Mr. Miller, it's an honor to meet you. We've heard so much about your service. We're here to make sure you get back on your feet." Trump turned to John, his smile wide. "See, you're in good hands. They'll take care of you from here. But don't think I'm disappearing. We're staying in touch, John. I'll be checking in on you." John's voice cracked as he spoke. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you, Mr. Trump." Trump clasped his hand tightly, his expression softening. "Repay me by living the life you deserve. That's all I ask." As Trump left the office, he turned back one last time, giving John a thumbs up. John watched him go, feeling a strange mix of gratitude, hope, and disbelief. For the first time in years, the future didn't seem like a cold, empty place. It felt like something worth fighting for again. Months later, John stood on a podium at a community event organized by the Veterans Initiative Center. Dressed in a crisp suit, he spoke with confidence to a crowd of supporters and fellow veterans. "Not long ago, I thought my life was over," John said, his voice steady. "I was homeless, hopeless, and lost. But one man saw me, not as a criminal, not as a failure, but as someone worth saving. That man was Donald Trump." The crowd erupted in applause as Trump, sitting in the front row, gave John an approving nod and a thumbs up. John continued, his voice filled with emotion. "Because of him, I have a home, a job, and a purpose again. And I'm here to tell every veteran out there, you're not forgotten. There are people who care, and there's always a way back." As the event ended, Trump walked up to John, clapping him on the back. "You nailed it, John. I'm proud of you." John smiled, his eyes glistening. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mr. Trump." Trump grinned. "You could have, John. You just needed someone to remind you. Now, let's go get a steak and talk about what's next." The two walked off together, side by side, leaving the crowd inspired and hopeful. For John, it wasn't just a second chance. It was a new chapter, with brighter days ahead.